Thank you, Chair Stone. We're live.
Excellent. All right, well, I'll call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. This meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001. I'll now ask the recording secretary to conduct a roll call of members of the committee.
Thank you. I'll now call the roll of committee. Chair, Councillor Bob Stone.
Present.
Kenneth Donald.
Present.
Councillor Jason Fitzgerald. Helena Renwick.
Helena, you are muted.
Present.
Brandon Stapleton.
Present.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none. So moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment agenda dated August 20th, 2020 be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? That's carried. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the public meetings to consider applications for minor variances to the zoning bylaw. The input received by agencies, public, and staff is important in order for the committee to make sound planning decisions. The procedure to be followed in these meetings will be as follows. A brief explanation of the application and any correspondence received to date will be given by staff. The applicant or the representative will be asked to provide any additional comments without repeating the information already outlined by staff. Any members of the public will then be permitted to ask questions or provide comments respecting the applications. Any persons making representation are requested to first state their name and mailing address. And please note the presentations are limited to 10 minutes. Once the hearing is concluded, the input received will be considered by the committee prior to making a decision on the applications. And if you wish to be notified of a decision of the committee, you must file a written request for notification. All right, a motion to adopt the minutes. So moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald, be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes dated July 21, 2020, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. All right. Richard is going to speak to us about 394 Bayshore Boulevard.
Thank you, Chair Stone. Through you, Chair Stone, the subject property is located at 394 Bayshore Boulevard. The lot has an approximate area of 913.4 meters squared and an approximate frontage of 20 meters on Lake Vernon. The lot is presently developed with a dwelling and attached decking, a shed, garage, and dock. The lot is designated urban shoreline residential with a dwelling, and is located within the Huntsville urban settlement area and is zoned residential 1. The applicant is requesting a minor variance to permit the construction of a 31.6 meter square addition to the existing single family dwelling a modified attached deck, and a modified roof with overhang. A minor variance is required to recognize the location of the existing dwelling and deck within the minimum required front yard setback, permit a 1 meter increase in height for the modified roof, reduce the minimum required front yard setback from 20 meters to 12 meters for the addition, and from 20 meters to 4.5 meters for the modified roof. The existing dwelling and attached deck are legal non-complying buildings and structures, as they are located within the minimum front yard setback required within an R1 zone or a residential 1 zone. Policies in the official plan allow for additions to non-complying buildings and structures, such as is proposed here, provided they do not increase the extent of non-compliance unless authorized through an appropriate planning approval, such as a minor variance. Also, they must meet the relevant official plan policies and comply with other provisions of the zoning bylaw. They must not substantially increase the amount of floor area in their required yard or setback area, and they must not threaten public health or safety or further impair water quality. Given the nature of the proposal and the supporting technical materials, the additions would appear to satisfy these criteria. For cold water lakes, such as Lake Vernon, official plan policies require a 30-meter setback be maintained for all development wherever possible. Where not possible, policies in the official plan allow development to proceed within the required setback under certain circumstances, provided they do not result in environmental or visual impact, and providing on-site phosphorus management and impact mitigation measures are implemented through site plan control. To address potential environmental impacts, a scoped environmental impact study was submitted in support of this application, and this study identified the shoreline habitat along the frontage of the property as type 2 fish habitat. And it indicated that the proposed development will not negatively impact the shoreline buffer and aquatic habitat. Further, the report notes that mitigation measures proposed, including naturalization plantings within the 15-meter shoreline buffer and low-impact stormwater management measures elsewhere on site, will increase shoreline buffering capacity, improve the existing shoreline and aquatic fish habitat, and support overall lake health. A planting plan has also been submitted to demonstrate how shoreline naturalization proposed wherever possible within the 15-meter shoreline buffer can be implemented, and in keeping with the recommendations of the environmental impact study. With respect to visual impacts, the addition will mostly be hidden from view, with the exception of the new roof overhang, and the deck will be moved further away from the shoreline in some locations. The application was circulated to the Lake Vernon Association and in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. No objections have been received. Letters of support were received from the Lake Association and several neighbors, and copies of these letters were forwarded to the committee prior to this meeting. The application appears to meet the 4 tests required to be satisfied in relation to a minor variance application. Additionally, the application would appear to conform to the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. As such, staff is recommending that this application be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or the representative to make any comments, and I think Crystal's going to help us with that.
Yes, I can see there's a hand up already, but if it's okay, Chair Stone, I'm just going to go through a few instructions for all the members of public present.
Sure.
Okay. So when asked to do so, please use the raise hand button or press *9 if you are connected by phone to indicate that you would like to address committee. When you are being brought into the meeting, during the transition, your video panel will be momentarily interrupted. Once you've been added to the meeting, your video will appear in the committee member panel. Please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and confirm your name and mailing address. So I see that there is a hand raised, so I will bring that individual in.
Great. I can see you're here, Kevin. There you are. And you're muted. We can't hear you. Nope. Nope.
Apologize for that. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
I will turn off my phone. I had my phone on in earbuds, but I'll go through the computer. Hopefully that works out well. Everything okay?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. I do appreciate this opportunity. My name is Kevin Laframboise. My wife and I are the owners of 394 Bayshore Boulevard, Huntsville, postal code P1H1Z1, subject of this application. Respected Chair and Council committee members, appreciate this opportunity to speak to our application and share an overview of why we submitted this application. Appreciate, and I won't repeat the great summary that Mr. Clark, your planning department, has provided. So I'll try and be brief. My wife and I purchased this property late 2019 with the full intent of moving up here permanently in 2021, and that is still the plan. We'll see how COVID affects things a bit. As part of purchasing a property, we recognize that there's a likelihood that we need to do a modest, very modest renovation addition to make the footprint a little bit more conducive to permanent residency. And that's the subject of this application. As Mr. Clark mentioned, the addition of 8 feet, should be using metric, is to the roadside. We worked through numerous revisions with Nathan Zimmer of Duncan Ross Architect to address in advance as many of the policy requirements and bylaw requirements so that our application would be received favorably from the committee. Regardless of the eventual site plan requirements, we fully intended to reduce some of the, I guess, existing conditions that I think are negatively, potentially negatively contributing to the Lake Vernon area, that being the sort of renaturalization of the waterfront. That was something we were going to do regardless of site plan requirements. Although we have a fair amount of vegetation on the waterfront, relative to the urbanized area that we're in within the Lake Vernon Narrows, close to the Highway 11 overpass, that's just part of our expectations for this property. Additionally, through this renovation, we're hoping to decrease some of the current property slopage that may be contributing to or enhancing the surface water pollutant and nutrient loading towards the lake. Anyways, I think Mr. Clark has summarized our application quite well, and I'll stop there. And I'll open it up to any questions you have of me, and as well, Nathan Zimmer is online in case there's some technical questions that I might stumble through.
Thanks very much. All right, I'm going to ask members of the public if they have any input on this application.
I'll remind members of the public to indicate if they would like to address committee by raising their hand or pressing *9 if you're connected via telephone. Seeing no hands raised.
All right, thank you. Committee members, do you have any comments or questions? Everybody's silent. All right. Well, so moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be resolved that minor variance application A06-2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsections 3.13.2 and 5.2.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to recognize the location of the dwelling within the 20-meter minimum required front yard setback, permit a 1 meter increase in height for the existing dwelling and addition, and reduce the minimum required front yard setback from 20 meters to 12 meters for the addition and from 20 meters to 4.5 meters for the modified roof, to permit the construction of an addition to an existing single-family dwelling, a new deck, and a modified roof for the existing dwelling and addition. Any comments or questions by committee? All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right, Richard, you are now going to speak to the application at 1430 South Wasiosa Lake Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 1430 South Wasiosa Lake Road. The lot has an approximate area of 3,181 meters squared and an approximate frontage of 30 meters on Wasiosa Lake. The lot is presently developed with a dwelling, cabin, pump house, shed, and dock. The lot is designated waterfront and is zoned Shoreline Residential 5. The applicant is requesting a minor variance to permit the construction of a new single-family dwelling with an attached garage and workshop, and a screen porch, a covered porch, and a deck with stairs. A new gazebo and a dock extension are also proposed. A minor variance is required to increase the primary lot coverage from 5% to 9.6% to permit the new dwelling and attached structures, which total approximately 254.5 meters squared. Policies in section 7.2.11 of the official plan state that waterfront character will be maintained within the waterfront designation by retaining traditional land uses at an overall low density, as well as by preserving the natural environment, particularly relating to water quality, landscape, vegetation, natural shorelines, and significant natural areas and habitats. In this instance, waterfront character will be maintained through the proposed development, and there will be minimal visual impact as a result, as all relevant yard requirements and shoreline setbacks will be maintained. Furthermore, the attached garage workspace is both to the rear of the dwelling and lower in height, implying the bulk of the attached structure will be hidden from view when viewed from the lake. With respect to the natural environment, Lake Wasiosa is a cold water lake, and the Huntsville official plan requires that development be set back 30 meters from a cold water lake. And I've described the intent of those policies previously. In this instance, the proposed development not only addresses this setback requirement, but proposes removal of all existing buildings and structures within this area, with the exception of the gazebo and the dock. Further, the proponent plans to revegetate disturbed areas within the setback area to restore them to a natural vegetated state. Removal of the existing buildings and structures within the setback area and the shoreline revegetation will be implemented through site plan control. In 2018, previous landowners were granted a minor variance to allow greater primary lot coverage at 66% versus 5%, a larger than permitted two-story detached garage at 82 meters squared versus the permitted 60 meters squared, and a larger than permitted shoreline gazebo at 30 meters squared versus the permitted 15 meters squared. The current owner's plans concentrate the proposed development of the house and garage into one area and hide the garage behind the house. This implies that the current proposal consolidates development within a smaller overall footprint and minimizes visual impacts in comparison to what had previously been approved. The application was circulated to the Lake Wasiosa Association and in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. A letter of support was provided by the Lake Association, a copy of which was circulated to the committee prior to this meeting. The application appears to meet the 4 tests required to be satisfied in relation to a minor variance application. Additionally, the application would appear to conform to the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. As such, staff is recommending that this application be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thanks very much. Call on the applicant or the representative to make any comments.
I'll remind the applicant or representative to use the raise hand button to indicate if you would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I'm seeing one hand raised.
All right, bring them in.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Sandy Forsyth through you, Chair Stone.
Do you have a video?
Oh, there we go. Video.
Oh,
Okay.
there you are.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. Through you, Chair Stone, Sandy Forsyth, agent for the applicant, 3179-4, Muskoka Road 117, Baysville, Ontario. I'll be brief. This proposal is quite similar to the proposal that we put forward in 2018. However, the overall development is slightly smaller. The main reason for bringing this forward again was to attach the garage and workshop to the house rather than have it as separate buildings. And the garage is no longer a 2-story garage with a sleeping cabin above. The owners have discussed the proposal with neighbors, and the neighbors have had no objection. So I'd be available to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thanks very much. Before we do that, let's see if anyone of the public would wish to join us.
Again, I'll remind the members of the public, if you wish to address committee, please raise your hand. Seeing no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Then I'll open it to committee members. Any comments or questions about the application? Mr. Donald.
Thanks, Chair Stone. Through you to Richard. It's just a question regarding the comment on the dock extension. It seems to me that the application for the minor variance is regarding the redevelopment of the residential structure. But there's also a line in the background that talks about the extension of the dock. Can you tell me why why the dock is in there for consideration?
Is this to me?
No, it's sorry,
No,
to Richard.
to Richard, if we could.
With respect to the dock, my intent in the report and in this verbal presentation was just to point out that the development will include a dock extension, but the dock itself and the extension to it will comply with the zoning, so there is no need for relief in relation to that. Did I lead you to believe otherwise?
I was just a little bit confused by the fact that there was commentary in there about the dock extension. So it suggested to me that we might be approving a dock extension. That was all. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
Any other questions at committee? Richard, it just seems unusual that we're almost doubling the permitted, like we often extend the, what do you call it, the square footage or the percentage of lot coverage. and it's almost doubled on this.
Mhm.
And is that appropriate on this lot? And did we suggest that maybe some things should not happen?
Yeah. So in this instance, as you recall or may recall, in 2018, the proposal was to construct a dwelling with a detached garage. And so when you look at the dwelling itself, that's considered to count towards your primary lot coverage, whereas the detached garage is an accessory structure, and so that counts towards accessory lot coverage. And on this particular lot, you have a zoning that allows for 5% primary lot coverage and 5% accessory lot coverage. What they've essentially done is they've proposed to rejig things to have the garage attached to the dwelling, making it part of the primary structure, and therefore needing relief from the primary lot coverage provision. But overall, when you compare this development to the previous development, the actual area that's covered by dwelling and garage is smaller than previous. It's just by attaching it, you need relief from the primary lot coverage provision. And in this instance, what the applicant has agreed to do is kind of as a trade-off for that, they've agreed as a condition of approval to reduce the accessory lot coverage so that at some point in the future, no one's going to come along and build another detached structure of up to 5% lot coverage. So they've really taken their accessory and primary and combined them together, which is common. And that's, I think, appropriate in this instance.
That's great. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that. Any other comments from committee? All right. Moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A15-2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 5.3.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to increase the primary lot coverage from 5% to 9.6% to permit the construction of a new single-family dwelling with attached garage and workshop, conditional on the existing 71.44 square meter dwelling being removed, the accessory lot coverage being reduced from 5% to 1.37%, and the increased footprint for a gazebo previously approved through minor variance application A18-2018 HTE being decreased from 30 square meters to 18.3 square meters. And before I call the question, I will ask Crystal to let Sandy out. All right. So you've heard the question. Any more comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard. Curtis is on deck now. And you're going to speak to the application at 95 Cottage Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of committee, Mr. Chair, through you. The subject property is located at 95 Cottage Lane. It is designated waterfront and zoned shoreline residential 5. Application has been submitted to permit the construction of a 2-story detached garage. A minor variance is required to increase the permitted footprint of a detached 2-story garage from 60 meters squared to 99 meters. No habitable space is proposed within the garage. In this case, the proposed garage and associated parking area would be sited at the rear of the dwelling and would partially be located on the existing driveway, limiting the need for vegetation removal in this area. As the shoreline buffer is presently clear of natural vegetation and contains a concrete retaining wall at the water's edge, staff have included conditions of approval to restore the shoreline buffer area with native species and remove the existing hardscaping. Site plan control will be utilized to ensure that shoreline vegetation is established and maintained in order to mitigate the visual impact of development of the lot, in keeping with the town's shoreline revegetation policies and official plan. The application was circulated in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. The Lake Wasiosa Association provided a letter offering their support for the application, subject to the garage containing no habitable space and the shoreline buffer being reestablished. No other objections have been received. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative.
I will now ask the applicant or representative to use the raise hand button to indicate that you would like to address committee. And I see one hand raised.
All right.
Hello?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Hold on a second.
Right here.
Hello?
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good. My name's Mike Frank. I own 95 Cottage Lane in Huntsville.
Put your head down.
I just kind of have a couple of questions in regards to the hardscape. This was already here when we moved in here, and I think the reason that it is there, because we are on a grade here, I think it's stopping the dirt and everything from actually running into the lake. The reason, like the hardscape is actually starting to tip over a little bit because of the dirt that is running down the hill and wanting to, obviously, to go into the lake. So, I'm just kind of curious, what do I need to do to prevent that? Like, if I end up taking that away, the shoreline's all going to go into the lake. And I don't think that's a good idea.
All right. So that's a very important question, and we have mitigation measures that's going to help save your property and make the water healthier for everyone. So Curtis, can you speak more to that point?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Through site plan control, staff will obviously work with Mr. Frank. I think the first thing I would say is that site plan control is the best way to think of it is as an agreement of work to be done. So the removal of that hardscaping is going to go part and parcel with the revegetation of the shoreline. So although it will be required ultimately, likely the first step will be to start revegetating the shoreline and allow that vegetation to mature. And the root balls of natural vegetation that would typically be found on the shoreline they run quite deep and do a fantastic job of holding the shoreline together. So I just didn't want Mr. Frank to think that, should this be approved with the condition that tomorrow he needs to run out there and remove that hardscaping and compromise the shoreline, that it'll be done as part of a process, which will be reestablishing vegetation and removing that hardscaping eventually. So,
Actually, that's good. That would work. And the shed you have saying I need to remove the existing shed by the shoreline. I was going to move keep the shed and move the well house. Is that a problem? Which is behind the cottage. So that would get rid of one of my rooftops.
I think from staff's perspective, the shed and the shoreline, the other shoreline shed were existing structures that were legal non-complying structures. But the only issue we really had was that with the addition of the garage, we would have been over the permitted 3 roofed accessory structures. And during our initial discussion, you had indicated that potentially you wish to remove the shed, which was so. Either way, I think we'd be satisfied. if you wish to remove the well house, I don't see an issue with that. And I apologize, Mr. Chair, that was through you.
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm good. That sounds good. Thank you very much.
All right.
Oh, one more question. Can I move ahead with the foundation or anything like that? Is that a possibility?
Curtis?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair, through you. The Mr. Frank, we can absolutely discuss that perhaps after the meeting. I'd be happy to give you a call and we can.
Okay. That'll be great. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Frank. All right, let's find out if there's anyone in the public that wishes to speak to this application.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand function to indicate they would like to address committee. Seeing no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? All right, then I'll ask Mr. Frank to leave the meeting and I'll read the motion.
Yep.
Okay, moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that minor variance application A 13/2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.1.15.3 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P to increase the footprint of a detached two-story garage from 60 meters to 99 meters, square meters. Both of those are squared, by the way. Conditional on the existing shed near the shoreline being removed. Removal of the hardscaping outside of the 7.6 meter permitted shoreline amenity area and the 15 meter shoreline buffer being revegetated with natural species to the satisfaction of the town, all to be implemented through site plan control. Any comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right, Curtis, you're up for the rest of the meeting, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Here we go.
You're stuck with me. Through you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located at 145 Golden Pheasant Drive. The lot is designated Highway 60 Transitional Corridor and Zone Shoreline Residential 1 with exception 1824. The applicant is proposing to construct a 22-meter addition to the east side of the existing structure, as well as a 15-meter square deck to the front of that, closer to the water. Minor variance is required to reduce the setback from type 1 fish habitat from 30 meters to 21.5 meters for an open unenclosed deck and from 30 meters to 24.5 meters for an addition to the single family dwelling. As the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry had designated a portion of the shoreline abutting this lot as type 1 fish habitat, a technical report was completed by FRI Corp Ecological Services in support of the reduced setback to the fish habitat. The study concluded that the shoreline abutting this lot was best characterized as type 2 fish habitat, but noted that there was indicators of type 1 fish habitat abutting the property to the west. The author concluded by identifying that the proposed additions would not impact the adjacent fish habitat, subject to the implementation of recommendations. These include developing and implementing of erosion and sediment control, the leaving of all in-water habitat features in place, site plan, and to implement those, site plan control will be utilized to maintain and enhance the natural vegetation abutting the shoreline, to implement the recommendations of the fish habitat assessment. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The Ferry Lake Association provided a letter offering, or stating rather, that they have no objection to the application and no objections have been received. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thank you. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments.
I will remind the applicant or the representative to use the raise hand button to indicate that you would like to address committee. Seeing no hands raised.
All right, members of the public that might want to speak to the application.
Again, I am seeing no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any comments or questions about the application? Everybody's very quiet today. All right. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be it resolved that minor variance application A14-2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.5.1 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P. To reduce the setback from type 1 fish habitat from 30 meters to 21.5 meters for an open, unenclosed deck, and from 30 meters to 24.5 meters for an addition to a single-family dwelling. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right, Curtis. The next one is 36 Beach Road.
Wonderful. Through you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located at 36 Beach Road. The lot is designated waterfront and zoned shoreline residential 4. Application has been submitted to permit the reconstruction of a single-family dwelling and an open unenclosed deck on the, as well as an open unenclosed deck on an existing detached garage. A minor variance is required to reduce the setback from type 1 fish habitat from 30 meters to 23.75 meters for a single-family dwelling and open unenclosed deck only. Additionally, a minor variance is required to increase the primary lot coverage from 5% to 7.33% and increase the accessory lot coverage from 5% to 5.14%. As the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry has designated a portion of the shoreline abutting this lot as also as type 1 fish habitat, a technical report was submitted by Mikulski Nielsen and Associates Limited. It was submitted in support of the reduced setback to the type 1 fish habitat. The author concluded that the proposed redevelopment of this lot would not impact the adjacent fish habitat or water quality, subject to the implementation of recommendations. These include the use of sediment control works, requiring any stockpile materials to be located away from the water's edge, as well as maintenance and enhancement of the 15-meter shoreline buffer. Site plan control will be used to maintain and enhance the natural vegetation abutting the shoreline, as well as to implement the recommendations I just mentioned. In keeping with the official plan. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. We had received one letter of support, which was circulated to committee yesterday. However, just this morning, we did receive 2 additional letters. The first, they were emailed to the committee, so hopefully you all had a chance to review them, but if you didn't, one was a letter of support, and there was a question in there within the wording generally about permissions from the ministry. Just for committee's clarification, part of this, not this proposal, but part of the applicant's plan is to rebuild a dock in the future. And they would require a permit from the ministry when they go to do that. Obviously, it would be included in the site plan, but that was the answer to that question if committee was curious. The second was from an abutting neighbor, and they had basically raised some concerns, which again, just given when we received it, I just wanted to go over those quickly with the committee. The first was that they indicated that their septic bed and tile bed were somewhat near or maybe abutting the existing detached garage, and they had concerns that that runoff would have some potential to affect the septic. They had indicated that that there has been construction on the property ongoing for some time, and some construction materials such as lumber and old siding were somewhat near the shared property boundary, and that the existing accessory structures. I guess maybe some concern that they would continue to be used maybe for storage of construction related materials and that they were a visual distraction. I can say that I had spoken with both the person who had submitted the letter of objection, and I had a chance to speak to the property owner to make them aware that we had received these. And he indicated to me that he is more than happy to work with his neighbor to try and address any of those issues. I would say that she also, at the end of her letter of objection, had indicated that she doesn't have any ill will towards the applicant. Just rather, these are some housekeeping things that would make things more copacetic between the two. And it sounds like we have an opportunity through site plan control to address some of these concerns. And the applicant had indicated that if it's installing eaves and directing, rainwater away from the neighbor's property, revegetating that shared lot line, fixing any damage to the fence, he's more than willing to do that, and obviously wants to maintain the relationship between the two of them. So that's all I wanted to say about that. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thank you very much. And just for clarity, anything happening on this property cannot be affecting the neighboring property. So all measures will be done to ensure that no runoff in any way goes onto the neighboring property. Correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. All right, let's call in the applicant or the representative.
I'll remind the applicant or the representative to use the raise hand button to indicate that you would like to address committee. And I do see one hand raised.
Bring him in. There you are.
Hi there.
Hi.
Nicholas D. Koning, 36 Beach Road, Utterson, Ontario. I'm the owner of 36 Beach Road, where I've lived for the past 8 years. I've submitted this minor variance application as I'm hoping to reconstruct and slightly expand the existing dwelling, which was constructed in the 1960s and has structural issues. Native to Muskoka, this has been a dream of mine since I purchased the property in 2012. And as such, I've been planning and saving up to complete this build for many years. I'm now at the point in my life where I'd like to start a family soon with my fiance. This new home will give us the space to do so. We've spoken to some of the surrounding neighbors who generally seem to support the application. I understand our direct neighbor at 32 Beach Road had comments about construction debris and runoff, and I'm more than happy and willing to meet with her to discuss options to clean up my property to her satisfaction. Our direct neighbor at 44 Beach Road has sent in a letter of support of the application. And I understand there's been other comments of support submitted to the town of Huntsville. Unfortunately, the existing infrastructure on the site, such as parking area, driveway, side yard setbacks, and septic system, limit the available building envelope. In addition to the property being an old, undersized lot, we are located in a sensitive fish habitat, which further limits the building envelope. Most of the addition to the dwelling is on the back side of the dwelling, hidden from the view of the lake. We obtained a fish habitat assessment, which is in full support of our application. I ask and hope that you will be in support of this application today, as this is an exciting project for my fiance and I in the next chapter of our lives.
That's great. Thank you very much. Members of the public, is there anyone watching us today that wants to make any comments?
I will remind members of the public if they would like to address committee to please use the raise hand button. Seeing no hands raised.
Thanks very much. Members of committee, any comments or questions? Mrs. Renwick, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Chair Stone. And a question through you, Chair Stone, too. This is more of a housekeeping question for me because I'm still learning about this, but for a fish type 1 fish habitat, the setbacks are typically 30 meters from the shoreline. That's correct?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, and so what would be, we're looking at going to 23.7 meters away from the shoreline in this one. What would be sort of that danger zone or that area that we would not go past? Like, is it halfway or is it?
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful question. The typical setback for most properties where they're not abutting type 1 would be 20 meters. So it would be the typical setback. The area in which we get pretty fussy, if anybody's proposing anything, is within 15 meters of the water's edge. And the rationale behind that is that that 15 meters is what they refer to sometimes as the ribbon of life. We call the shoreline buffer, and that area is really important in protecting lake health. So keeping that naturally vegetated, trees, shrubs to help filter groundwater, filter sediments and debris to keep it from getting in the lake. So anything within 15 meters has potential to be harmful if we don't do our due diligence, but at 20 meters, that would be behind the typical setback for development in most waterfront properties.
Whoop. And Helena just ducked out there. All right. Well, it was a good question.
It was.
Yeah, no, and always getting more information whenever questions are asked. All right. If we'll ask Nick to leave this part of the meeting. So moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A16-2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsections 3.5.1, 5.3.4, and 3.1.6 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P. 2, reduce the setback from type 1 fish habitat from 30 meters to 23.75 meters for a single family dwelling and an open unenclosed deck only. Increase the primary lot coverage from 5% to 7.33% and increase the accessory lot coverage from 5% to 5.14%. Any comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right. Moving right along. Curtis, you are speaking to the Britannia Road application.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located at 358 Britannia Road. The lot is designated rural and zoned rural residential. The applicant is proposing to construct a 66.43 meter squared single-story detached garage. A minor variance is required to reduce the front yard setback from 12 meters to 7.7 meters for the detached garage only. In this case, the proposed garage would be constructed adjacent to the existing driveway. Due to the location of the existing septic system to the north of the proposed driveway or garage location and propane tank, which are again west of the dwelling, as well as steep slopes to the east of the dwelling, the ability to site the proposed garage at the required front yard setback is limited. The garage is proposed in an area that is presently clear of vegetation and is relatively flat. And as such, the proposed works will not require the removal of additional vegetation or significant grading work. Despite the reduced front yard setback, there is a very well vegetated buffer consisting of mature trees and woody ground cover screening the garage from the road, which would mitigate the visual impact of the garage in accordance with the plan. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. No objections have been received. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thanks very much. The applicant or representative, if you'd like to speak.
I'll remind the applicant or representative to use the raise hand button to indicate you would like to address committee. I am seeing one hand raised.
All right.
Hello.
Hello there. Oh, there you are.
Hello. Yes, we would like to construct our garage on our property, and we have limited space to build this garage. Currently, there is a small shed that is there, and it's actually still sitting on rollers so that we can move it once the garage is constructed. I know that was identified in the proposal for the council.
All right. Thanks very much.
Okay.
I'll ask any member of the public that wants to speak to this application to come in.
A reminder to members of the public to use the raise hand button if you'd like to address committee. Seeing no hands raised.
All right, thanks very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? All right. If we can have Carol leave this part of the meeting. Moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A17-2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 5.2.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to reduce the front yard setback from 12 meters to 7.7 meters for a detached garage only. Conditional on the existing shed located in the front yard being brought into compliance with the zoning bylaw or removed. Any comments or questions from committee? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, we're on to the Bylock Acres Road application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located at 430 Bylock Acres Road. The lot is designated waterfront and zoned rural residential. The applicant is proposing to construct a single-family dwelling, attached garage, and porch with a total footprint area of 231 meters squared. A minor variance is required to increase the primary lot coverage from 10% to 12.8% and to reduce the accessory lot coverage from 5 to 2 the increase in primary lot coverage. The official plan states that disturbance on lot should be minimized, with buildings being located in the most appropriate areas on the lot. In this case, the available building envelope is significantly restricted due to the size and odd lot configuration, as well as the orientation of the road. As such, the dwelling is proposed in what is essentially the only available building envelope on the lot. The applicant is proposing to consolidate their lot coverage, basically to attach all the structures together. And then again, with the consolidation and the reduction of the accessory lot coverage, the lot would remain below the 15% maximum anticipated coverage permitted by the bylaw. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. No objections have been received. The application appears to conform with the policies of the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thank you very much. All right, the applicant or the representative can speak to us now.
I'll remind the applicant or representative to use the raise hand button, and I do see a hand raised.
I see Tracy is there, but I can't see her picture, and she's muted.
All right, I think I have volume.
There you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Owen. I am the agent for the Van Dykens. My address is 6 Duke Street, Port Carling, Ontario, P0B1J0. Thank you, Curtis. That was a great description, I think, of our proposal. As you can see, it's a pretty unique corner lot and very limited space to develop the new dwelling. We've done our best to comply with just about everything except for trying to combine our lot coverages. So we're proposing hopefully a very simple swap of our primary to our accessory lot coverages. At this time, there are no additional accessory structures proposed. We have consulted with a septic designer and have received verification that there is adequate space for a septic system, and have also received our entrance permit from the town. So hopefully we've got everything appropriately planned. I see that there is a site plan control option, and of course we're quite happy to work with the town on renaturalizing this very level lot that pretty much is grass. So be happy to answer any questions the committee has.
Wonderful, thank you. I think it's the only level ground in Huntsville anywhere.
Great.
All right, members of the public, if anyone would like to join us.
I'll remind members of the public to use the raise hand button if they would like to address committee. Seeing no hands raised.
Thank you. Committee members, any comments or questions? All right then. Thank you, Tracy. We'll ask you to leave this part of the meeting.
Thank you.
Moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be resolved that minor variance application A 19-2020 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 5.2.4 to increase the primary lot coverage from 10% to 12.8%. Conditional on the accessory lot coverage being reduced from 5% to 2.2%. The lot being subject to site plan control to require revegetation of the yard abutting the public street. Comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. I'm sorry, Kirsten, you wanted to say something?
Thank you, Chair Stone. I just wanted to ask committee if they were comfortable with the recommendation that had been adopted for the application on Wasiosa Lake. It was the Frank one at 95 Cottage Lane. The applicant had requested that the shed near the shoreline not be the shed that needed to be removed, but the well house shed instead. But the recommendation that was approved talks about the existing shed near the shoreline being removed, and I didn't know if committee recognized that and were comfortable leaving it the way it is, or if they wanted to change it. I just wanted to bring that up.
But it's the shed at the shoreline that we want removed, correct?
That is what staff recommended being removed, and the applicant asked that not that shed be removed, but another one on the property. So,
Mr. Donald.
As I recall, sorry, Chair, as I recall, Kirsten, Curtis had mentioned that staff was likely to be okay with a shed being removed and didn't indicate a preference as to whether it was the wellhead shed or the other structure. As long as that's okay with staff, I'm okay with the resolution as proposed.
Any other comments from committee members? Curtis, can I ask you, how close is this shed to the water? And because that's the one that we want removed because it's close to the water. Is that not correct?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just give me 1 second. I just want to grab the file so I can have the map in front of me here.
Sure.
Bear with me here. It is located in the front yard. There's two structures abutting the water. One is an existing dryland boathouse, and the other was an existing 4 foot by 8 foot shed. Originally, when I spoke with the applicant, Mr. Frank, I had suggested to him that, if we did have a preference, that it would be the shoreline shed to go, because it is sort of the least complying with municipal bylaws. But that said, it is still an existing legal non-complying structure. The whole rationale behind removing or having them remove a structure was essentially that they will have one too many roofed accessory structures. So from that perspective, I mean, I guess if you asked me if I had a preference, it would be the shoreline shed, but at the end of the day, it really wouldn't make much of a difference. Coverage wise, it's still fine. And it would bring the lot back into compliance with the roofed accessory structure provision. But obviously, if we can get rid of a structure at the water, that would be an added bonus. So, clear? I feel like I've maybe confused the situation.
Mrs. Renwick?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I hope I don't leave you again. But looking at the sketch, and I know we're not going to go back and change anything, but Curtis, the question is, there's the existing shed and then there's an existing boathouse. But you're talking about the shed because the existing boathouse is closer to the shoreline, but he's not thinking of removing that, is he?
No, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. We weren't asking him to remove the boathouse.
No.
He's still well within his coverage provisions.
Okay.
And again, that was a legal non-complying structure. So when I first approached him about sort of this issue, the conversation was that, you are proposing a fourth roof structure and you're permitted three. You need to remove one.
Right.
The preference was the shoreline shed, but at the end of the day, if he'd prefer to remove the decorative well cover, I mean,
Okay.
we're still fixing the issue.
Thank you.
Any other comments from committee? All right, then the motion will stand as it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Stone.
To read now, don't I? Because it's all right. Now that all comments have been received, I declare these public meetings respecting the above applications to be concluded. We'll now move into the non-public portion of the meeting to deal with the consent applications. All right, and I'll just move straight to Curtis, and you are going to speak to the very last one, I believe.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize to the committee as well for any confusion on that sort of last subject. So hopefully it wasn't too painful to get through. The subject property is located at 388 Muskoka Road 10. The lot is designated community residential and zoned residential 1. The purpose and effect of this application is to create one new residential lot with an area of approximately 1,985 meters squared and 31.9 meters of frontage on Spruce Drive. The retained lands would have the same area and approximately the same frontage, except its frontage would be on Muskoka Road 10. On July 21st, 2020, the Planning Committee approved zoning bylaw amendment application Z08, changing the zoning from a residential 1 zone to a residential 1 zone with an exception to recognize the proposed lot frontage and area for the severed and retained lands. Typically, the consent would then be approved by the Director of Development Services, subject to the delegation of authority bylaw that was passed by Council. However, prior to that happening, a letter of objection was received raising concerns about the proposed lot sizes. As the authority delegated to staff to approve consent applications is limited to instances where no objections are received, that is basically why this application is now before the committee. Upon review and consideration of the additional correspondence, should be noted that the policies of the official plan encourage infill development, intensification, as well as development that reflects the existing build form in terms of height, building mass, and character. In terms of the proposed lot sizes, it can be seen by looking at the location map attached as attachment 1, that the proposed lots would basically mirror that in the existing area, in the area. Section E of the official plan states that privately service lots must have sufficient and suitable area to adequately accommodate services. To address this requirement, a technical report was submitted by Duke Engineering in support of the application. The author confirmed that both wells and septic systems could be established on the proposed lots without impacting source water in the Port Sydney community. As such, the proposed lot area and frontages would not appear to be a barrier to establish private well and water services. The application appears to conform to the policies of the official plan and provincial policy statement, and therefore staff are recommending approval.
Thanks very much. It's not a public meeting, but the applicants can speak to this if they wish. Is the applicant here?
Stone, I can see the applicant has raised their hand, or their representative.
Mr. Dennis.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Chair Stone, Committee, Lenny Dennis, Wayne Simpson and Associates. I represent the owner. Certainly concur with the planning department to approve the application. I think that's a fair and accurate assessment of the proposal, and appreciate the efforts working through the process with in the application with staff. We have no issues with respect to the conditions that are proposed. The merits of the proposal, maybe just to highlight what Curtis has already stated. Basically, the lots really do reflect the character of the area and the surrounding neighborhood. There's similar lot pattern. We had 3 letters of support for the application. The site evaluation report was prepared and identified and supports development on each of the severed and the retained lots. The zoning was already approved. And I think it's a perfect infilling situation and follows the recent changes and the new and the town's new comprehensive official plan. So I would I'd respectfully request committee approve the application. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Stone. I just want to comment about Mr. Dennis's remarks that it's an excellent infill opportunity. Yeah, we need all the help we can get here. So if something's befitting of the neighborhood, this is why we exist. Time to put the committee to the test and make the right decisions. And I think this is one of them, and I agree with the recommendation. So thanks everyone for taking this seriously and trying to do a good job with it.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions? All right, then we'll ask Mr. Dennis to lead this portion. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be resolved that the Committee of Adjustment approve consent application B15 2020 HTE for the creation of 1 new residential lot, conditional on a registerable description of the severed lot being submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, including all rights of ways and easements, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. The owner's taxes being in good standing, a site inspection fee of $230 being paid to the town of Huntsville, a consent finalization fee in the amount of $175 being paid to the town of Huntsville, 5% cash in lieu of parkland being paid to the town of Huntsville on the severed lands, the lands being rezoned for their intended use, the applicant obtaining written confirmation from the District of Muskoka that an entrance permit can be issued for the proposed intended lot onto the district road, a 3-meter or 10-foot road widening across the frontage of the retained lands being dedicated to the district municipality of Muskoka for road widening purposes, the lands being subject to an agreement with the district municipality of Muskoka pursuant to section 51 of the Planning Act of 1990 as amended, respecting the location of wells in relation to the district road. And lastly, the lands being rezoned for their intended use. Whew. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Done. All right.
Thank you,
Well,
Mr. Chair, members of committee. We
Thank-
flew through that, so that was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. All right. So moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 3:16 p.m. All in favor? Woohoo!